I don't use note cards, and I try to stay on time. I'm starting 11 minutes late, so I talk pretty quick. My name is Marie Stettler, and I met Karen last year, a year and change ago, at a women's pro-life meetup, and she heard my story, and we kept in contact, and a year and a half later, she asked me to come be here, and I flew up from San Diego, California, to come speak to all of you, and thank you. Yes, go San Diego. So I'll just jump right into it. 3 years ago, actually I should start even before that. I should start talking about my childhood. I grew up in a super devoutly Catholic family, and I'm talking like daily mass on Sundays. You didn't miss mass on Sunday unless you had pneumonia and were in the hospital. Even then, like they'd have a priest come bring the Eucharist to you. My brother's in formation to become a Catholic priest, which I'm very proud of, despite the fact that our church is in a negative light right now. Huge sacrifice on his part. And I love my faith, and I always grew up loving my faith. And as I moved into college, I started to get involved in the pro-life movement. And I saw that as a Catholic, you're kind of just automatically pro-life, and you don't ever really question it. You just know life begins at conception. If you have an unplanned pregnancy, you keep it, or you place the baby for adoption, or you don't get pregnant in the first place. Those are your options. There's not really any other options as a Catholic. I prayed the rosary in front of abortion clinics. I volunteered at pregnancy resource centers. The whole slew of ways to be pro-life, I was a part of it. And I started nursing school. I was 22 years old, and I was about 2 months from graduating nursing school. And I was in a relationship with a man, twice my age. He was extremely wealthy, successful. He was a big owner of restaurant conglomerates in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I lived at the time. He bought me like a $70,000 SUV. He paid for my school, my rent. Life was really easy and really good at the time. And I had just gotten comfortable in this relationship. And it was an extremely controlling relationship. My family didn't really know about it. My friends didn't approve of it. I didn't have anyone to talk to. But I was really stuck. And I dug myself so deeply into it that I didn't really know how to get out. And my plan was always graduate nursing school, get a really good job, break up with him, leave, and pretend it never happened. And 2 months before I graduated nursing school, I peed on a pregnancy test and it was positive. And at that point, I just felt like my whole world went dark. I had no options. I didn't know what to do. People didn't even know I was with this guy, nonetheless now pregnant. And I didn't know who to call, and I called one friend of mine who lived in Washington, D.C. at the time, where I had lived prior to going to nursing school in Pittsburgh, and I called her and I told her the situation, and she said the same thing that I expected her to say, like, you have to keep the baby, you can't do anything else. If you don't have another option, there's nothing you can do. And I felt the same way at the time. I did feel the same way, but I didn't know how to go about doing that. All I saw was, I'm pregnant, I'm with a guy I don't ever want to be with, I don't want to be attached to for the rest of my life, I'm stuck. How do I go from that to like having a child and then still remaining with him? There were so many unknowns and so many questions. And so for her to just tell me, like, you have to keep this baby, I was like, I don't see how I can feasibly do that. And so within about a week of just feeling like my life was over, I started to look up options, and I started to Google options in Pittsburgh, research what I could possibly do, and this one option that I kept finding, and it kept coming back to me over and over again, was this abortion pill. And I'd never heard about it prior to that. I never really looked into how people have abortions. I just knew how to not have an abortion and why you should not have an abortion. So I read about this pill, and I knew at the time I was probably like 3.5 weeks pregnant. I had just found out. And the pill said, or the website about the pill said that you take this pill, you go to the clinic, you take it, 24 to 48 hours later, you go home, and you take a follow-up set of pills, and then the pregnancy's over. And nobody ever has to know about it. You don't have to tell a soul. Your parent doesn't have to sign a consent. You can just go take it, and within a day, it's all behind you and it's all in the past. And so for me, who's totally freaked out and scared to tell anyone, I was like, all right, God, I'm going to do this, and we're going to take it up later. And that was the decision that in my head seemed like the best. And so again, I couldn't imagine doing that though from the upbringing that I had. I was so conflicted, and I just remember being terrified. Like, even when I think back on that day, and when I talk to women who are pregnant all I remember is just being like palpably so afraid because I felt like my whole future of this like bright plan was just darkness. And I think that that's what culture had kind of shown me. If you're a single parent or if you're a woman in the church who has a pregnancy, you're no longer welcome. You're frowned upon. You're a hypocrite. You don't matter anymore. And so here I was like praying at abortion clinics, becoming a registered nurse, and then I'm pregnant. And I just felt like my whole life from that point on would be done. And I told the father of the baby, he was obviously not supportive of the pregnancy whatsoever. He told me if I had the child and ever tried to leave the state and go back home, I'm from Idaho, go back home and have my parents help me raise the baby, he would sue me for everything I had, he would make sure he had 100% custody. And so I was 22 years old and terrified. And I looked up the closest clinic, and I didn't even look up like an abortion clinic or anything. I just wrote pregnancy clinic. 2 blocks away from me in downtown Pittsburgh was a Planned Parenthood. So I walked into the Planned Parenthood and I basically inquired about the abortion pill. They gave me an ultrasound, I didn't get to see it. They sent me back with a counselor, and the counselor just asked me, why do you want to do this? What's your plan? Where are you going to go from here? And I told her my situation, and she said, yeah, I think you're going the right path. I definitely think abortion is the best option for you. You're just about to start a career. You're just about to open up this double door into life that you've set before yourself. You've worked for it. You've earned it. I don't think you should let a baby get in the way. And I was like, yeah, you're totally right. And so I took a pill, and I digested it, and I walked out the doors. And it's like, as soon as I walked out the door, and once you've like made the decision, all of a sudden you can just like see so clearly. And this like veil of fear is lifted. It's no longer dark. You can actually make a decision because you're not in this fight or flight response where you're doing whatever you have to do to like stay alive and keep control because you made the decision. So now you have control again. And I was so disgusted with myself. I was like, what did I just do? Like, I couldn't believe that in like a week of time I had gone from this core set of values that I had, and because of fear I had now swallowed this pill to stop the heartbeat of my baby. And I was scared. I just imagined, I still remember just walking down the street imagining one day, as for what I believe, I'm gonna have to go hopefully to the gates of heaven and give can't think of the word, appraisal of my life essentially, and tell God, like, this is why I did this, and how do I ever like come up with the right words in the human vocabulary to explain how my life and my lofty dreams and my reputation was worth more than this innocent child. And I knew that I would never be able to come up with a substantial excuse. And so I went home that night and I Googled abortion pill regret, and I found this website called Abortion Pill Reversal. And I was like, there's no way this is real. But I clicked on it, I looked into it, I saw Abortion Pill Reversal had like a nurse hotline that you could call. So I called the hotline, and the sweetest lady named Debbie answered the phone, and she said, Abortion Pill Reversal, this is Debbie, how can I help you? And I'm crying my eyes out in my apartment in Pittsburgh. My boyfriend's gone, he's not home, he's at the restaurant late. I tell her my whole life story, and she was like, great, okay. And she explained to me that the pill that I took, mifepristone, RU486, essentially its mechanism of action is that it stops the body it turns off the progesterone receptors in the body. So it stops the body from being able to grow the baby. And progesterone is a natural hormone that women have in pregnancy, and they need it to sustain life. So it stops your body from receiving that, and if, before taking the second pill, which actually like induces contractions and labor, if in that period I take enough progesterone to overpower the effects of what the pill can block, then we have a chance at saving the baby's life. And I was like, okay, that totally makes sense. Put more soldiers in my army than the soldiers in the army that are trying to kill the baby, and we can keep my baby alive. And she did tell me it's about 60% effective, and that the smaller the baby is, they have kind of noticed that the more likelihood there is of a miscarriage later on, because there just won't be enough progesterone to sustain the pregnancy. And she found a doctor near me, it was about an hour drive, who was willing the next morning at 7 a.m. to go into her clinic ahead of time and give me the progesterone prescription. And so we hung up the phone, we had the plan, and overnight I told Rick, this is what I'm doing. Oops, I try not to say his name, Emily. I told the guy that this is what I'm doing, and y'all can Google him. And I was like, okay, like freaked out. I mean, freaked out, said that I'm in charge of this roller coaster of emotions and we made a decision together and why I'm not sticking to it and this is what we're going to do. And so I was totally guilty again. And I was like, he's right, like this is his decision too. It's not just my decision. And I felt so guilty, so I didn't show up for my appointment. And that Debbie called me so many times I had to block her. She emailed me so many times that I was like blocking her from my email. I was like, no, I made my decision. I don't want to think about it anymore. Rick's gonna kill me if I have this baby, so I cut her off. And she managed to like find me on Facebook and Facebook message me and Instagram DM me. Like this lady cares so much about my future and the baby's future that she just like stopped the earth and moved the freaking mountains to get to me. And yes, thank you, that there's people out there like that. And so I read one of her messages and I just remember reading that she was like, Maria, I just wish more than anything that I could fast forward time and future you could tell present you that it's gonna be okay. And I was like, okay, let's go. Like I'm gonna go to the clinic. I went to the clinic and I went over 24 hours after I had ingested the first pill, which is like the big red flag. We really tried to reverse those abortions within the first 24 hours. And so I went, I took the pills. My friend from DC actually drove up overnight to come be with me. I told her everything that had happened. And I called my mom and I told her everything. And I told her I'm trying to reverse it, this is what's going on. And my mom was like, you know, Maria, I always had a feeling that you would end up in an unplanned pregnancy. And I was like, what? I was like, thanks. Okay. And she was like, no, I mean, anytime you do anything bad or break the law or do anything, you're always caught, like immediately. Like God is never, like he never stops pursuing you and trying to bring you back on the path. Like you always get caught. And it's true, I do, I always do. And so I told her everything and she just started crying. She was like, I have a grandbaby, like whether this lives or it doesn't, like it's okay. And I was like, oh my God, if only I called her first. Like I wouldn't be in this situation. And I just assumed that everyone would be against me. And so a couple of days later, well, like this is the part of the story that I just want to be like, oh, okay, here's my 3-year-old daughter. Let me show you her. She's not alive. And I did go on to miscarry. And so after that had happened, like I had no worth left. I was just like worthless. I didn't have any identity. I was even more dependent on Rick for his opinion of me because I had clearly just like committed the greatest sin in my record. And how was I supposed to go on from here? And so I didn't address it. I didn't do anything about it. And because of several miracle stories that I can't get into or I'll be way over time, I ended up leaving him and I moved back to Oregon where my grandparents live, and one of them was very sick and I moved to help her. I graduated nursing school. I got a job as a nurse, but I never told anyone about this abortion. Like nobody was ever going to know. I was just going to keep it under the rug. My mom knew, my friend Olivia knew, and no one else really knew. And I went on a mission trip that summer, and it was just a random thing. Someone had sponsored me to go to on a mission trip to St. Lucia, which is like a great place to go on a mission trip. And I went, and on the mission trip, lo and behold, every dang door I walked on was a pregnant woman or a woman who was miscarrying her baby or a woman who got an abortion. And I was like, okay, here you go, I got to talk about this. And so I did. I told someone on the mission trip, there were a couple of priests there, I told them, I had shared with them my story, and he said, like, one day God will use this. Like and I know some of you don't believe in God, and I'm not pushing my faith at all, this is just my personal story. God will use this, and he will use this to glorify your life. Like your life will be set on fire because of this, not because of all the wonderful things that you've done. Like he's going to use this part of you. And I went home from that mission trip, and I had a voicemail, because I didn't have any service in St. Lucia. I had a voicemail from Olivia, from a girl in DC, and she was like, you're never going to guess who I met. You need to call me as soon as you get a chance. So I called her, and she was like, I met this guy at church, and his name is Ryan, and we started talking. And come to find out, Ryan used to go to the church that you sang at, and I sing and I cantor at a lot of churches. And Ryan used to go to the church that you cantored at, and I was like, oh, no way. And so Olivia asked Ryan, when did you go there? And he told her, like, I went there between 2012 and 2014, and she was like, oh, no way, my friend used to go there and sing there. And he was like, was she the blonde girl that, like, always sang at the 5 o'clock mass? And Olivia was like, yeah, that's her. And Ryan was like, does she still live in DC? And she was like, no, she doesn't. She's out in Oregon now, and she's a nurse, and Ryan was like, no way, is she pro-life? And Olivia was like, depends on the day. It's just so sad that you're laughing at that, but it's so true, and that's why I like to tell this story, because it opens people's eyes up to when it truly matters to be pro-life. And he told her, well, my mom, she runs this like nationwide hotline, and she's always looking for volunteer nurses. And she was like, what's your mom's name? And he was like, it's Debbie Bradle. And she's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I never heard of her. And she tells me this story, and I'm just like on my knees. I'm like, this is like, the priest just told me that God is going to use this story, and like there it is. Like before I'd ever even like thought that I could ever get pregnant, he had put someone in my life that was the son of the woman who is now my marriage prep like mentor with my fiance in San Diego. Her and her husband are. And so I called Debbie and I told her this story. I got back in touch with her, and she was like, okay, this is great. So, you know, she had a full plan of action. She said, we're going to train you. You're going to be an APR nurse. You would be fantastic because you've actually been through what these women have been through. And so I started working on this hotline, and that was eye-opening because we get a ton of calls every day, and every single woman is me all over again. Like every single day I just relive my story. And every time I just like hated myself. I mean, I had to dig into those layers of why did I do this? Like why do women get in this situation? And every single time it's because they felt like they had no other options, they had no other support. And these women's stories were crazy. Their house had just burnt to the ground. They cheated on their husband who's deployed and had his best friend's baby, and now what she's supposed to do. I mean, it like doesn't stop at anything. How do you convince that woman that it's better to keep her baby? Or to place it for adoption. Like there's no words, there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can give, but those women need like palpable resources right in front of them. Like here's the next step. You don't have to think about the baby, you don't have to think about the birth yet, like this is the next step in doing this. And that's what you need, and that's what I didn't have, and that's what we don't have in this country. It is a billion times easier to go get an abortion than it is to keep the baby or to place the baby for adoption. And so to end on time and make a long story short, I was in Oregon and ended up moving to San Diego because Debbie had her first grandchild and wanted to retire. And I took over managing the hotline, worked full-time for a pregnancy medical center there. I got my ultrasonography license and did ultrasounds full-time for women who were in unplanned pregnancies. And it's true, what that priest said was true. Like God, he never like took the singing ability that I had or just some like fancy critical care nurse, ER, Grey's Anatomy dreams that I had. He was, and that's not what it is, he was white box all day long, I promise. He didn't take any of those talents. He was like, I want this like dusty, dirty, sinful past and these like nasty windows and broken glass that you have all over the ground, and I'm gonna make this beautiful like stained glass window that when people look at that, they won't see his reflection. When they look at that, they don't see me. They see God, and that's what he's done. Now, you know, I think people, the most common question I get asked is like, well, you're able to come up here and tell this story because you don't have your baby. I'm like, yeah, but how much more powerful would my story be if I did? Yeah. How much more like amazing would that be if I was standing with your toddler on my head? You know, and that's the one thing I don't have, and that's the one thing that abortion pill reversal, although there's many programs and reasons and ways to reach out to women, that's just the one that I have experience with. That we're able to reach out to these women, and then from there, the next step that they have is what Amy's going to talk about, and it's something I strongly believe in, and I think that from just one person, their experience, she's created this empire of ways to reach women using her own wants and needs and things that she needed. So with all due respect, I would bring Amy forward up.